Good evening and welcome to the April 14th Town of Proctor Select Board meeting. If you please join me for the Pledge of Allegiance.
Pledge allegiance to the flag, the United States of America, and to the republic which stands one nation under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
The first order of business is the approval of the agenda. A motion would be in order.
So move.
Second.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Motion passes unanimously. Motion will be in order for the
People
March.
on, just checking to see
What?
if they're, there's people on, just checking.
Oh, okay. I was like, what? A motion would be in order for the approval of the March 24th Select Board meeting minutes.
So move.
Second.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion passes unanimously. All right, so under open public comment, we've invited our senators and representatives here, so we're going to start with them, and we'll start with Alicia. Thank you very much for coming.
Thanks for having me, and I apologize, I haven't been coming to the Monday meetings. I do plan on coming regularly once the session is over. So, might have seen that the House did pass Floor 54, the education bill.
Yeah.
It wasn't a very popular bill. A lot of people I know voted yes just to pass it along so that the Senate would get it, and that hopefully some changes would be made. I know a little bit concerns. This would relate to Proctor would be minimum class sizes. It's you know, for a lot of small towns can be very detrimental to the smaller schools if that stays in the bill. So I'm on Judiciary Committee. We we're kind of, our chair has kind of picked pieces from Governor Scott's overall public safety bills. We've been looking at some bail reform, looking at kind of redefining recidivism to get better quality data going forward on criminal justice statistics. You know, overall, I don't want to sound like negative. It's been a really kind of stall for most of this session. And now things are starting to pick up, and we're spending more time on the floor in bills, and just a lot of that, you know, back and forth between the Republicans and the Democrats, and trying to get some consensus and find some middle ground on some of the some things that we really need to take care of this biennium. I don't know if anybody has any specific questions about anything that's going on.
Do you, Albert?
Well, you know, because you mentioned public safety, and when I hear public safety, I think back of COVID. Remember when we had the PPE issues? You know, did they ever find out what the root cause was and if it's been corrected?
That I don't know, and I don't know.
No, I wouldn't think you would.
But yeah,
You know,
I don't know. You mean actually getting them, like why?
Yeah, we didn't have
hard time
any
getting them?
inventory.
Yeah.
We had to go to the public and plead with people to
Yeah,
give the hospitals and
you know, that was terrible.
EMTs, you know, the
Yeah.
PPE that you have, you know, and I was just wondering, you know, when I
Yeah.
hear public safety, did
I
they
know.
ever resolve and
Yeah, I don't know, I think some people were hoarding them, right? And then also I just think like kind of a supply and demand issue, but I don't know specifically. So, yeah, just public safety, I know with kind of what comes up often around public safety and judiciary is just like trying to figure out how we can stop this whole catch and release with offenders in the system, because you see a lot of that in this state. Because we do have some language in our constitution about bail. Bail can only be used to ensure that someone's going to actually come to court. So there's just a lot of that cycling in and out of the system for some people. So just trying to figure out ways to address that. So.
Yeah, that is an issue.
Yeah.
Good.
And there was
Yeah, I
one
mean,
more.
it's just asking if somebody has a
The other
question.
one was with the Vermont League of Cities and Towns. We get the weekly legislative updates.
Yeah.
And there was one, they were talking about the big bill, and I know it was back in January, we were confronted, and I think at the time it was called Act 68, the statewide reappraisal.
Mhm.
And,
Oh, yeah,
That kind of got put on the back burner or tabled.
yes.
And then I was reading in the education bill that they were bringing that back up.
Yes.
So the bill that you just referenced was the reappraisal, statewide reappraisal part of that? Or that wasn't in that?
So,
I don't think it's N454.
no,
Okay,
I don't
okay,
think it
yeah.
is, but it is a piece that, that just ties into not only like restructuring of education, but the finance piece too, which would go directly to reappraisals and how that ties into property tax and all that, so, yeah.
I don't think the finance aspect of it, at least when we looked at the SBA, is that specific in 454. It just
Yeah.
kind of seems like, they said this is the number we
Mhm.
want, but the finance piece is kind of just floating around out there, even though the whole reason for restructuring, or the reason we were told, was it was gonna save us money, and that seems to be really on the back burner, that no one wants to address that or say, oh, yes, so that when they eviscerate and small communities like this, that their justification for doing that is they don't really have one anymore.
No, agreed, and I was disappointed how little healthcare comes up around that conversation when it's such a significant, it's a pretty sizable chunk of education funding.
That the state
you know?
took away from local control 2 years ago,
Yeah,
and doesn't have a handle on yet.
No, sadly.
Yeah.
Do you expect the session to really drag on into the summer, or?
I think so. I mean, I do keep hearing we'll be there till June, and we do already have a veto session is already scheduled for June. I believe it's 16th and 17th.
Oh.
So, yeah, I do think it's gonna end up being at least a few weeks longer than a typical session, what it sounds like. Yeah.
Any other questions for Alicia?
Or just one more around, energy and electricity.
Yeah.
In that, we hear so many mixed messages via all forms of media from, the tariffs. Our energy is going to be part of the tariff package, and energy is not part of the tariff package. Then there's Canadian premiers that want to discontinue sending any energy to the United States. So we get 25 to 30% of our energy from Canada, electricity.
Yeah.
Is there any discussion in Montpelier that you've heard, concerning, electricity?
So I'm sure there is, what's been going on in the energy committee, I can find the answer for you, but.
Well, it's just that, our wastewater treatment, facility and pump stations use a lot of electricity.
Yeah, I know.
A 25% increase would be a big bump.
Right, I know. I know, I'm over in Pittsburgh, we have Omeo, which is, I think, the second highest electric user in the state, so it's a concern for
Yes.
sure.
Definitely.
Yeah, I'll get back to you.
And it's always a good idea, like, at the school for the VSBA, if there's something big coming up that members need to know about, but maybe aren't keyed in that you're gonna vote or something's going to happen the next day, just letting Judy know so she could shoot it out to us. So if we need to contact senators or things like that, it just gives us that opportunity.
Okay.
And so, yeah.
Is there anything that you think that what would you like me to look out for that maybe that wouldn't seem obvious to me? That's very Proctor specific.
I don't know. I mean, I think the catch and release is like a huge piece for all of us, particularly since we're so close to Rutland. I mean, I think that, drugs seem to be making that climb back into our community. Not that it ever was completely gone, but it did seem for a while that it wasn't as bad. But I think, once again, that's just something else. And I think, I personally, I think probably part of that is because we are so close, to Rutland, that we get a lot of that kind of overflow. I think what Albert spoke about, the reappraisal and like that, that's a huge concern about wanting to take that away. And I'm sure it is in Pittsburgh as well, take it away from local control and, have more of a statewide kind of system. I think, we only need look at the healthcare to see that every time the state takes something, it's not, it's so much more efficient, even though they tell us, bigger saves money. We've yet to see that in any real aspect. And I think the other piece is, and I don't know where this is at in the house, but the 3-acre stormwater is a huge consideration, particularly in smaller communities like this, or communities that, there are landowners that have some larger sections. If they should want to subdivide, what are those implications for them? And those implications then, are for housing and things like that, which was a huge priority for the governor.
Right,
So
right.
those are things I would think. I don't know what other people feel.
I agree with the housing, the homeless, people, where are they going, what are they doing, what do they need?
Mhm.
Sometimes,
Yeah.
where are we with that?
Ryan might be able to answer some of these.
Yeah.
He can.
Yeah. Okay.
All right, so why don't we move on to Brian, who's joining us virtually, and let him give us a little update from the Senate.
Love to, and thank you for having me. Glad to respond to individual and specific questions if you like. Representative has already talked about the bill that came over on Friday from the House with respect to the education reformation. That is definitely a work in progress. The governor's foundation formula was $13,200 annual spending per student. In the House bill, it moves up to 15 and change. I think it's 15,033. The Senate Pro Tem has instructed the Senate Education Committee that governance will not be taken up this year. We will wind up with a formula, but that's about all we're going to be able to do. I am distressed about that. I think the building block needs to be how many districts and supervisory units we're going to start with. Then you can carve them up into wards, figure out school board elections, et cetera, school class sizes, school choice. There's a lot of attenuating data with that. But I think for the moment, we are only going to concern ourselves in both chambers on coming up with a formula. And right now it's 15,033, at least in the House. I don't see that as staying there. I think it needs to get further down. There will be weighted measures added to that. So if you are in a situation where there's a lot of poor kids in your school district, you get credit for that. If there are a lot of English as a second language, you get credit for that. So you can spend more money than the formulation formula. But that's a cap. And if you want to go beyond that, if you want to build a pool at Proctor High School, you will have to pay for it by voting out a bond. And it's up to a 10% additional cost. So we're trying our best to figure a fair way to keep school property taxes as low as we possibly can. The governor's proposed that we spend $77 million of what now is in a reserve fund, and the House Ways and Means Committee added another $41 million. So you're north of $100 million, which would take what is projected to be an average of 5.9% tax increase next year. Proctor may be lower, Proctor may be higher. I don't know that, because the CLA, as you mentioned with the appraisal, is going to be taken into account. But the situation will be that you will, the problem is if you use all 114 or whatever million dollars, that's all we're going to have this year. And you start next year with that as a hole that you've got to fill. And then you consider that as well as the federal government, which continues day by day to cut funding for a whole bunch of things, including Medicaid, which is where we get about 30% of our budget. And if you don't put some money in the bank to save it, to fill those holes later on in the FY26 budget, we're going to be, I think, in a world of hurt. So I don't know where we're going to wind up with that, but that's one piece, the education piece. And when we all ran for election, or in my case, re-election, that was the number one thing that people talked about was the property taxes. And how are you going to go up there and fix them for us? And we're trying our best to do that. I don't think there's any secret that there's going to be a different landscape in terms of what do we have? I think 7 high schools in Rutland County, 8 if you count MSJ. And it probably is going to be necessary to consolidate to some degree some of that. Maybe the elementary school landscape will remain the way it is with, smaller elementary schools, but the high school situation, I think, has got to be looked at seriously and figured out how we're going to save people money. If the district size, the governor wanted 5 districts, I think he knew that was not ever going to happen. The Senate Education Committee came up with 9. Maybe that's still too small. I don't know. But we need a number to start with to then have people come in and testify and get public input, and also superintendent's input, Vermont Education Association input, and find out what that number should be so that we can reduce the number of supervisory unions and school districts so that it's not as top heavy as it is right now. The administrative costs drive a lot of the property taxes. I'll be very honest about that. And that's just a fact of life. You mentioned public safety, and Alicia's on judiciary in the House. We've done a little great work on that. I'm hoping that we can do a lot more. Unfortunately, in Vermont, as Alicia mentioned, in the Constitution, we have a bail situation where unless the judge is convinced that the defendant will not show up for court the next time, he or she is unable to impose bail on that defendant. You can impose conditions of release, which is a whole different topic, and make that as difficult and stringent as you want, but you can't impose bail just on the basis of public safety, unfortunately. So changing the Constitution is a 6-year topic, and I don't know that we're going to be able, well, we can't do it this year anyway. You have to wait till the next biennium. So that's another one. I'm trying to remember the other topics I heard since I've been in. Well, maybe I'll just open it up to people that have any questions about it.
The 3-acre stormwater.
Yeah. Again, I hope everybody understands how that came about. So the TMDL, which is the total maximum daily load for Lake Champlain, and we are in the Lake Champlain watershed, has been established at a certain amount. And that is in terms of how much phosphorus can be introduced into the lake on an annual basis. So the EPA about 15 years ago said, hey, guess what, Vermont? You are not doing a good enough job reducing the TMDL every year. So tell you what we're going to do. We're going to give you a chance to figure out the best way forward for you in Vermont to reduce that TMDL each year. Then you need to come back to us so we can approve whatever proposition you come up with, and then we'll go from there. So by rule, not by statute, not by law, but by rule, the Agency of Natural Resources came up with this 3-acre rule. And in case there's anybody that doesn't understand what that means, if you own 3 acres or more of what is called impervious surface, that is, water can't seep through the dirt and disappear, in essence. So every parking lot, every roof, gravel roads count as impervious surface. All of that is likely to be impacted by having to do mitigation. And you need an engineering study, first of all, to figure out what it is you're going to do. Then you need to figure out a way to do it. Do I build a pond somewhere on my property for all the stormwater to run off and then gradually seep into the ground? Do I pump it somewhere else to do it another way? I'll give you a classic example. So the Vermont State Fairgrounds in Rutland has over, I think it's 16 acres of impervious surface. It would, first of all, they're surrounded by private property owners. So there's nothing they can do in terms of putting a field and a mitigation pond in a field somewhere. They don't have the ability to do that because they don't own anything outside of what's there in the fairgrounds. If they did it on the fairgrounds, they'd have to take what are now the rides, that section that hold the rides, and put it there. And that would impact, obviously, ticket sales. Nobody's going to go to the fair if they can't get on a ride. So that's one thing. It's going to cost them about $3.4 million to come into compliance. And guess what? They don't have the money, and the Vermont State Fair will go out of business unless we figure a way to help them. But every car dealer with parking lots, every municipal building, every school, every business that has 3 acres or more of impervious surface is on the gun, and they've got to figure out a way to get this done. There are 4 fairs that are involved. So Addison County, Champlain up in Burlington, the exposition, the Lamoille County Fair, and then Rutland are the ones that are affected. The other 3 have figured a way that they can do it. It's going to be costly, but they can do it. But in order to do it, I can't remember what Robert Congan said. They'd have to raise ticket prices about $500 a piece in order to get that $3.4 million. There's just no way they can do that. So I'm hoping that we can find a way to push the implementation out about maybe 3 or 4 years so that people have a chance to figure out what we're going to do. The fair was never supposed to be included in that, by the way. They just got captured in it. But I share your concern about the 3 acre rule. I don't think it was a well thought out rule, and I'm hoping that we can change it.
All right. Dave is here. We're going to let him speak, and then we'll ask questions of the 2 of you together. Okay?
Great. Hey,
Thank
Dave.
you.
Thank you.
Yeah, hey Brian, my apologies, I thought your meeting was 6:30 and I
No,
thought
you're
it was
fine.
early. Knew I'd catch rain if I didn't show up early, so anyway, I apologize.
No, go ahead. You're good.
And I'm not sure what Brian covered. I
He
heard-
talked about the school, He talked about, bail. He talked about the 3 acre.
How deep into school did he get? H 454?
We said that the school is primarily you're gonna work on formula, no governance this year. The House bill is 15033, that's higher than the governor's bill. And he believes it needs to come down, that you're gonna use 114 million to fill the hole, to bring property taxes down, even though property taxes in Proctor, as you know, can go without that. And the property per student within Quarry Valley, which includes Proctor, is 11,190. So I just like to have that out there when we're talking about small schools, and we're talking about things that, getting rid of high schools. That was another thing he spoke about, getting rid of high schools in Rutland County that, since we merged since Act 46, that our district has followed the rule. So.
Yeah, so let me start. 454 passed out of the House Friday. We'll get it in committee, in the Senate Education Committee tomorrow. And then we'll start picking it apart. Lots of amendments got thrown in last minute on Friday afternoon. I wasn't able to track all of what got added. So we're just going to take a fresh look at 454. Going to get it briefed to the committee, and then we'll react to it. Closing high schools, that's going to go up to the new school board level, which would be the district. Not sure how big that district will be, and that's what I think Brian was alluding to.
Oh.
Anywhere between X and Y, don't know, but it's going to be, a smaller number of districts than it is now. And I think you mentioned that governance is not this session.
That's what he said.
Right, so Brian's right. Brian's always right, but governance will likely go, so the House passed, in their bill, they passed that, a subcommittee of the futures of Vermont's education, et cetera, will do that activity. We don't think that, we think that this should be a legislator-driven committee. So the Senate more likely, and then it'll have to clash with the House again towards the end of the session. We think it should be a legislator committee, so legislators who were elected by you have the decision about what these districts should look like and where those boundaries are. And we'd like to finish it up by December. Okay, so we see the need for a little more speed on governance piece. So we're not really trying to push it out. We're trying to say, okay, look, we get it. It's not a good idea to have a group of 6 legislators decided for everybody. We're gonna create a committee that brings in all the legislators so that we hear about, okay, look, Pittsburgh and Proctor, maybe they should be grouped together, maybe they shouldn't. You know, we're not gonna go there ourselves between now and the middle of May. So that'll be most likely a committee that we develop that will report out in December. And then it meets, whatever we decide, it's still gonna meet the overall Senate chamber and the House chamber. And it's gonna get hashed out there, and we're gonna bump into the governor, and, you know, it's gonna be a process, but we don't wanna wait 1.5 years to have that conversation. We only wanna wait until January. So that's 454, okay? Good with that. So Brian is on a couple of different committees than I am. The one that I'm on, which is different from Brian's, is economic development and housing. Housing was huge in the past couple months. We're putting a lot of money into trying to get housing in the state. We're trying to figure out why is Vermont $150,000 per unit more to build a home than New Hampshire, New York, Massachusetts, and Maine. And we think a lot of that is bureaucracy and what have you. So we're really trying to address that up front on what that problem is. The other program, which I think is very beneficial to Rutland County, is the VIII program. VIII is Vermont Housing Improvement Program. It's where we take abandoned and derelict houses that are off the market. And there's a little seed money that comes in from the state. So roughly somewhere between $30,000 and $50,000 as a grant with certain conditions that we give it to the landlord who's got one of these derelict units, and they bring it back in to meet the health code requirements for the state, and the unit comes back online. And that's roughly with the investor, the landlord, the investors, investment and the state investment, we can typically bring a house back online at about $150,000. Maybe a little more, but about $150,000. For a nonprofit right now to build a home from scratch, $600,000 to $650,000. And that's when you exercise all around it. West Rutland is a good example, that project right in the corner there. It's just an example. So we know we need to build some new houses, and we're incentivizing that. But we really want to bring these derelict units back online. We think the return on investment there is enormously more beneficial to the state than Brian, did you talk at all about the BAA and that status?
I did not.
Okay,
But
so
that has to do with a homeless situation, and somebody brought that up earlier.
okay, very good. Okay, I just want to make sure it wasn't glossed over that we are still bumping into each other in Montpelier, specifically about the BAA. BAA is a Budget Adjustment Act, which takes the mid-year fiscal year and adjusts it to actual revenues and actual expenditures and trues up the budget. I'm sure you guys do something very similar here. Now the BAA got hung up because there's about $108 million, which is dedicated for the hotel voucher program, which the governor was adamant, no, you vetoed the BAA twice, came back out of, got passed through the House and the Senate twice, and still governor vetoed it. So we're at a bit of an impasse. We've got to figure out what that $108 million is best utilized for and move forward from there. And healthcare, I don't see any movement on lowering the cost of healthcare. Okay, lots of activity, lots of verbiage, but I don't think we've really attacked that problem. So I don't expect any big movement, any big changes, and that obviously affects cost of education and such. Does that help for committee insights?
Questions for anyone?
I apologize.
Can I ask one about
Sure.
Airbnb, your vacation homes and
Airbnb
they,
stuff.
yeah, because we were working on that, but then we were told to kind of back off of it because the state wasn't even
finishing up rules about it. Now apparently they are. Have you seen that? That,
Haven't seen that pop back up. Didn't come through a housing committee.
I don't know. I mean, Judy's one, it said, and then I got it somewhere and I don't know the wording.
Yeah, it kind of fell onto the municipalities and not with the state any longer, and the municipalities were doing it their
They
own.
passed the tax at all Airbnbs paid a tax, 3% or something. Brian, do you recall that? I thought that was real.
Yeah, we haven't seen any movement on anything new this year, but we did pass an added fee, if you will, or tax for Airbnb last year. I'm reminded of another topic that was brought up earlier with, and again, the CLA, common level of appraisal, has an intersection with the property tax rate. You know, it just does. If you fall below 85% of what is considered fair market value, you're on the hook to figure a way to get it back up to 100. Guess how you do that? You appraise people again, and in most cases, you charge them more money. Does anybody in this room honestly think that the state of Vermont is going to do a better job than people in the local area with appraisals? I just cannot imagine that that's going to happen. First of all, there's not enough appraisers statewide to do it, but I think the local people should be absolutely 100% in charge of appraisals. I fought that tooth and nail. But we lost, and the state is going to eventually take that over. And you know as well as I do what happens when the state takes something over. It costs more money, and we do a poor job of it, my view.
Can I ask where they are too about they've been to our homes, looking at the pipes and all inside, because they were gonna replace everything that is lead and.
Yeah.
Just have not one, I just wonder what.
From a state perspective or a town perspective?
Well, it's from the state.
It was
Yeah.
mandated from the state, but they're not replacing anything. It was
They were
just for
inventory.
inventory only. Just,
See how big the problem.
just to see, yeah.
But then there were, somewhere we saw that if they would pay for where the line joins your house.
Yeah.
So there's been no more, they came and took pictures and they, you know, did that kind of thing, but they never said when it would start or when they would, because they would pay for that section of it.
No, it was just total inventory. So they were just going through taking pictures to see what was coming into your house, what kind of pipes were coming into your house, like from that point on, what pipes ran through your house.
I think part of the conversation was if it was rampant, there could be a possibility that they would create some kind of funding mechanism, but I think as we listen to everything here, there's no more funding to put, so.
Well, it could be a federal program. How, can I just ask, just to have it in my back pocket, how big is the problem? Do we know? Is it
Well, the
10%
state did, it was a state
Yeah,
mandated,
it's posted on our website.
yeah.
The
So,
results. I mean, there's a lot of houses that they assumed if like a neighborhood had copper and they couldn't get into a house, that house also had copper. So there were very few that were actually lead. There were quite a few people that wouldn't let them in their house and people that didn't comply with the inventory.
Okay, so it's a problem, but it's not a huge problem. It's give you some
Right.
idea. Okay, that helps. Basically.
And I'm sure the state would never fund anything to help out with that, so.
well, it's inside your house, it's not, it's
Right.
not.
Anything
They would stop, they said where it
Right.
joined your house.
Right. If it's a municipal water system, now if it was a big problem, it could be.
Right, but anything we're replacing when we're doing projects have to be copper anyway, so. So any other questions? Yeah. I mean, I think 454 is the biggest concern probably for people in small communities, and because the impact can be so devastating to a community, to most communities in this area. And to sit here and then listen and say, well, we're not doing anything in healthcare. Healthcare hasn't moved. Healthcare is a huge component. When we talk about education costs, I mean, we like to say that, you know, administration is one of the driving forces. Driving forces are healthcare, special services, transportation, and a lot of your SU type administration are supplemented through funding from federal grants. So,
Yeah.
I just think, we have been told since this started, from the governor, from people that were out politicking to be in Montpelier, that the reason this was going to be happening was, and this is me. People can say whatever they want. This is me, and I'll stand on the other side if I need to speak from the public. That the reason this was happening was, the primary reason was to bring property taxes down, and so to get that in line. And there are districts that have had it in line, and there are districts that have followed since Act 46. And that is us here, Proctor, Pulteney, West Rutland. And I do not believe, as we said here, that once this has all been done, that we are going to see a significant decrease in our property taxes. I mean, I think that we may see communities eviscerated because you will take the heart and soul out of small communities, but I do not believe that you're going to reduce. I think ours are at 3 something for Proctor, that you're going to bring it down by closing schools in our area.
Okay, I don't think the governor's promised you to bring down property taxes. I think the governor's promised you to increase the quality of the education for the price per student that we're paying.
He said both.
And if I can finish, right now you're paying about 11,000 per student. The first foundation formula is 13.2. The H454 was whatever, 15 something.
1533.
You're gonna see a big bump per student to hopefully increase the quality of the education for all the students. This is statewide, but certainly when you take the weighting of a student on top of that 13.2 or 15, whatever, you're gonna get a lot more bang for the buck for a student to enjoy an academic program far superior to what they're enjoying right now. And I'll leave it at that. That's the intent. That's what the governor's up to. Not to shape it or parse it any other way. How it affects the local community, that we'll have to stand by and see what happens. I do think that all these local schools, especially as Senator Calmer said, in our county, are going to be potentially affected because of the number of facilities within a small geographic area. And that's kind of where the discussion is left. If the whole program doesn't work out for the betterment, the improvement of the quality of education for the student, then we're not going to go there. We're not going to do this. This whole thing is we'll just leave it status quo and see where we go. The whole idea is to improve the quality of the education for the student. That's really the goal. Not to be unequivocal.
So the other
The
thing,
governor said both, as
Okay.
did the Secretary of Education.
Shock was property taxes that went up 15.8% across, or 14.8% across the state, and 34% in some individual communities. That was the shock. And now people ask us, well, what the heck? Quality of education is not increasing, but the price is sure increasing, and the cost per student is the highest in the nation. What's going on? That was the wake-up call. That's what the governor is responding to, and we're responding to it too. If we didn't, then we'd be culpable in the system to not address something that's the elephant in the middle of the room.
I think the elephant in the middle of the room is healthcare, but
Healthcare, sure, but that's why I said, so healthcare is not, I'm just trying to share with you. I don't think it's properly being addressed. There is no big look or governor's effort or any party's effort to correct that.
and
what I'm
that's
saying.
my
It's not gonna
point.
change.
I don't see how education changes and moves without that being the
You can't
first.
pull every lever in the room at the same time. And healthcare is a huge one. And yeah, it affected the budget 13% last year.
Albert,
Point of order, can we turn to select board issues, roads, sidewalks, and put education on the back burner for now?
go ahead, ask your questions.
Yeah, funding for class 2 highways or paving of class 1 highways and grants for sidewalks. Is there any movement or discussion in Montpelier concerning those projects, or have they taken a back seat to
So none of us in the Senate, none of us are on transportation committee, so we don't see those conversations on a daily basis. Yeah.
But I can answer that up to a point. Senator Westman from Lamoille County is chair Senate Transportation. And he's made a very strong point at the chair's meeting every week that the transportation fund, so there's 3 funds in Vermont. There's the general fund, the education fund, and the transportation fund. And they operate independently of each other, although there's some sharing of funds from time to time when need be. The transportation fund is running in a deficit. The reason is more people are buying electric vehicles than they were the year before. Not a lot more, but a few more. And so what that means is the gasoline tax, which generates funds for the transportation fund, is not making what it was when people were all driving either gasoline powered or diesel powered vehicles. So there's a hole there that needs to be filled. We haven't figured out the sweet spot yet as to how to charge folks that are driving EVs money to help the transportation fund. Do you do it at the time of registration? Do you figure out a way to make it based on mileage? I don't know the answer to that. I know one thing, the batteries in those cars are way heavier in trucks. They're way heavier than the regular cars. So they tear the road up more, and they need to sort of shoulder their own load with respect to this. But the answer to the question of there's no money right now, Vermont, I think on an average paves about 360 miles of road a year statewide. Senator Westman has told us that that number is going to be about 125 miles this year. So it's going to be cut easily almost in half, again, because there's no money coming in or not an adequate amount to the transportation fund. Not all of that is the gasoline tax, but a large amount of that is. And registration fees and the DMV fees are part of that too. But it doesn't look good for our roads. And trust me, I understand when you're saying we have, well, to put it bluntly, we have some really lousy roads in Vermont that need work. But right now, there's no money to fix them.
So I have a question. So one of my big problems is every year there's congressional funds out there that can go to your projects. And you're talking millions and millions of dollars, and they'll pour millions into parks and bikeways and things like that. So why can't they just start putting money into highways and sidewalks for municipalities? I mean, we all like to see bike paths. We all like to see trails. We like to see parks and things like that. But to me, those are more of a luxury than a necessity, whereas our highways and our sidewalks we need. And that is like last on the list of anything that they will look at funding. And I don't know why they can't reconfigure that.
Yeah, couldn't agree with you more. Just 2 points on that. That, again, is a congressional decision. So Representative Ballant, Senator Sanders, and Senator Welch are the people who, because there's congressionally directed spending, you're right, that come to each state to repair roads, refix them, bridges, whatever. The other thing is that in many ways, we're tied so closely to federal funding that we leverage up to 10-to-1 ratios if we can fund what we need to fund, and then we get 10 times that back in federal funds. Last year, unfortunately, in the last couple weeks of the session, we diverted money from what would have been transportation money to get that leverage, to get that ratio to social programs. So it came out of the transportation fund and went into the general fund. And once you do that, you lose that federal match.
Yeah, I'm concerned, with our big wastewater bond that passed, that we still don't know how much we're going to get to help us out with this huge amount of debt for 30 years,
Did you took a bond out for that, Bruce?
Yeah.
Yeah. Well, I don't know what that federal portion of that might be. Again, it's a daily thing to watch what's happening on the national level. I just, I don't agree with a lot of what's going on, but I can't I can't call President Trump up and tap him on the shoulder and say, hey, look, you gotta do something different. This isn't working.
Yeah.
It's out of our control.
Well, I applied for congressional funds last year for the wastewater treatment plant.
Yeah.
And was turned down because they said you have other options to try to get funding. Yeah, I probably saw at least 4 or 5 other towns that got money for wastewater treatment plants. So it's kind of upsetting and of course, a lot of it goes Chittenden County, you know, Addison County. We're not
Yeah.
really
The
thought about down here.
Southern Vermont gets, where the bad guys in the state. And
The old Middlebury-Dixon line. Yeah,
Rather
the old
than
Middlebury-Dixon line.
Yeah, and it's disappointing to hear about, you know, raiding the transportation fund for something else, as we sat here and drive back and forth over the railroad bridge that, you know, we had to wait till we had a hole in the other bridge and pieces of concrete were falling on top of Amtrak before something happened. And we're gonna be in the same position again here. And so it'll be the same thing. We're going to have to shut down and you'll have to be on one side or other of the correct, because I mean, this bridge has huge deficits in it and has had for 20 some years, even though we've been on the list.
And it's
So-
not on the list.
Yeah,
It isn't even on the schedule.
The Iron Bridge.
the railroad bridge.
Railroad bridge, and I brought that up at the last transportation council meeting, and I haven't heard anything back. We had to patch holes in that because there were some 6 or 8 inch deep holes in there, and it's terrible. It's not even on the map.
And that's just one little bridge in the state. As you drive through the state, you look at how aging the bridge infrastructure is in this state.
Yeah, you know, that bridge is over 100 years old. Yeah.
Boy, I feel like we're giving out really bad news.
Yep. All right, any other questions? Anything else you want to share with us? And like you said to Alicia, if there are things that are coming up that you think we need to be made aware of, you can always contact Judy. She'll send them out, and we can, you know, try to reach out to other senators, legislatures like that to show support. I don't know.
We'll just have to keep banging on their door up there with emails and messages.
Yep, that's how to do it.
Yeah,
So, I know Brian typically goes up to Montpelier on Monday night, but I'm here on Monday nights. You guys wanna, you know, you have questions or you want an update, just reach out. Yeah, we share between, you know, 27 of the towns and the school boards,
yeah.
et cetera. So, but anytime you need an update or desire an update, just reach out. We're here.
Yeah. Well, we appreciate your input and taking the time, and we'll just be calling you to find out where we gotta go. And we just gotta be very vocal with emails and messages to the sergeant at arms and go from there.
Yeah, I do think the education piece is an important piece
Yeah.
for this board, just as well as anyone else. That is a property tax value that is going to, if schools close here, that's going to impact our property value. So I think if there is significant movement in those bills, that that's something that, you know, even if it's just a 2-liner, this is what's happening, you know, just to Judy, and she can share it out with us. But I think that, you know, yeah, roads and bridges, that's what we're here for, but that's gonna have a huge impact on us as a community as well. You know, we saw what happened when Omea left town. You know, a school can have that, leave a hole that big also.
What is the story a little bit? I'm not familiar with it at all, so what I'm bringing up might not sound right. But how they're helping to build a brand new high school in Burlington.
South Road,
Instead of, there was, I guess, for not Virginia's,
Woodstock.
Woodstock was in on that too, and it's, everybody is where your money's going in like a big pool, and then whoever gets it, that's who's.
Well, Yeah, so Just a very quick overview. Woodstock wanted to bond for a new high school. They had some maintenance issues and such. I'm sure you all read about that. That bond didn't pass. The town didn't pass it.
Mhm.
South Burlington did pass. They had a PCB problem. They had a significant PCB problem. So they leveled the high school. They moved into a
Mall or something.
mall for several years, like 3 years now. I think their school is still a year away or so from coming online, maybe even longer.
Yeah.
But you're absolutely right. When anybody bonds for a school, the way the system works right now is everybody in the state essentially contributes. So,
Yeah.
absolutely right, Joe.
Yep.
Okay, well.
All right, thank you all very much.
Thank you.
Appreciate your time.
Yeah.
Thank you.
you.
All right, is there anyone else that wants to speak, under, open public comment? Is somebody still on there?
No,
Sorry, Brian?
just Brian.
Oh, I thought there was somebody else on.
They left.
Okay.
Yeah, I just want to mention that the Memorial Day Parade this year is on Sunday, the 25th, instead of Monday, and it's at noon. So we'll have the parade, and then after the ceremony in the park, our yard is putting on, grilling hot dogs, chips, cookies, sodas, and things, so that it doesn't just end when the ceremony ends. It can people can mingle and have more to do, so. And
Bring your chair.
we're just competing with a lot of other towns, and our firemen like to go to other towns, and other towns like to come to our parade and stuff. So it was just conflicting. Everybody was there Monday at 10 o'clock. So Sunday noon.
All right. Albert?
Are we on good stuff?
Well,
That was
I
good
didn't-
stuff.
Yeah,
Oh,
I
okay.
didn't know if there was
Oh, I'm sorry.
I'll
anybody,
wait.
John wanted to speak,
Yeah, no.
or
I'm fine with that, yes.
did you have anything, John?
Yeah, the highway department.
Okay,
On East Street. Do we hire a contractor to do that job?
We had to hire somebody to dig.
Don't we have a machine that can dig?
We only have 4 guys, and 2 had to be flaggers, and then 2 had to work on the pipes to fix them.
Yeah.
Yeah, it was a good sized hole, and we thought it was a valve that was leaked. All right, done.
okay.
Was that for the lead?
Mhm.
Huh?
Was that for the lead there? or-
No, it was a water leak, and then, yeah, it was a leak there, and once we got in there, it was several feet of pipe that had to be repaired, so it was quite
They
a
were
project.
Still working there when we came home from the OCW meeting, and that had
Yep.
to be 9:30 or so.
They finished at 10,
Yeah,
yep.
I mean, if we got a public works department, they should be doing this.
Well,
The road foreman directing traffic is not gonna learn how to do things. I can tell you that right now.
well, we
I've
have,
been in business for 30-something years, right?
we have,
Covering the hole, you gotta teach them, and they gotta learn that, learn. That's how they learn.
we have an operator for our water department, and we have an operator for our wastewater, and so they basically are in control of that, and the foreman oversees them.
Question I ask, why do we have to hire people to do the job?
And I just told you why.
it's a main
It
road.
doesn't make any difference.
Oh,
Okay. All right, well, so do you have any
Thank
other
you.
questions?
thank
Okay,
you.
did you have anything else, Carol? Okay. All right, Albert. Good stuff?
I don't know if you were gonna touch it on it.
No, I'll let you, go ahead.
Well, no, if you were going to. But on Saturday, the Proctor schools, in association with the Greater Rutland County Supervisory Union, presented the play Alice in Wonderland. They had 2 shows on Saturday, one at 1 and one at 7. And the cast was 36 students, grades 7 through 12. And then they had, the stage crew and other crew members of 9 students. So the total was 45 students were involved in the presentation. And the seating was on the seats were on the floor gymnasium, on the gymnasium floor. And
On a chair.
yeah,
Yeah.
and the seating, both shows were standing room only.
Yeah,
So that was great to
That's
see.
awesome.
And it was, wonderful experience for the people that were there watching, and, and it was, outstanding performance by those actors, that was good. And they usually have 2 a year, so if you have the opportunity, by all means, do go. I think, if you would enjoy that.
Can I add, they were a great bunch of kids, because my granddaughter and I went to the basket round, the music.
Yeah, oh, okay.
And we walked through the hall, and all those kids, I bet you there was 20 of them. Where are you going? Can we help you? Can you help? Where are you going? We want to know where we're going.
Yeah,
Very polite.
that was the first good item. And the second good item, and I just gotta look at, this, so I make sure I give you the correct dates, and that, Proctor Senior High School, is going to do a Loyalty Day concert. And the Loyalty Day concert is gonna be on Monday, the 5th of May at 6:30 PM at the Proctor High School Gymnasium, and it's free admission. And that concert is to celebrate members of the military who have served and are currently serving. And the performances would be done by the honors band, the high school band, the middle school band, and grades 7 through 12 band. So, that's a heads up for something good that's coming. So, I just kind of hope everybody puts that on their calendar and goes.
Lots of good stuff with high levels of achievement happening in Proctor. All right, anything else? All right, moving on to everyone saw the orders and signed them.
Yeah.
All right, so we'll move into the wastewater treatment fund upgrade change of authorized representative for the loan.
So for the water infrastructure, they needed to change it to have me on there, so I need everybody to sign it. I have the original here. So it authorizes me, so there's 2 spaces, while filling that part, and just down below here. And
Okay.
I can have the date too, but that's the original. Actually, I'll just give you the front sheet. There, thank you.
And then while we're doing this, do you want to talk about Gorham Bridge?
So we applied for a federal grant to pave Gorham Bridge Road, and the federal highway grant is for class 2 roads only. They informed me that Gorham Bridge was not a class 2 road, that it's a class 3 road. And so I questioned them because usually the class 2 roads are if there's like a high level of traffic and they're coming and connecting towns. So way into town, way out of town. So Gorham Bridge, if anybody knows, is one of the most highly traveled roads in Proctor, and it's not included. So the select board have the authority to try to change it to a class 2 road, and then the agency of transportation will decide if they agree with you or not. So I just wanted to entertain that now, and if there's any other roads. So right now, the only class 2 roads in Proctor are West Street, Cross Street, School Street, North Street, and
West
Main
Cross
Street.
School, North, Main, not South Street?
South Street is considered, that gets
Because it
through
comes off-
state highway funding.
Okay. So those are class 2. So do you want to wait till next meeting and people think about if there are other class 3 roads that should be moved to class 2?
Even regardless, so Gorham Bridge was on our list this year to be paved because it's pretty bad. And even if we change it to a class, if we decide it's never going to be changed in time for the grant had to be in by tomorrow.
Yeah,
So I did put Main Street, School Street on there
yeah,
just because,
you need that.
yeah, they said, okay, do it, because
Yeah.
what they're trying to do is actually push to show that there is a need for funding and there's not enough funding for these roads.
Right,
So I'm just thinking in the future, we're gonna try to still pave Gorham Bridge this year, but that's a lot of money that we didn't budget for that because we were planning on.
Can I ask when you say going bridge is it from the bridge back towards the fields?
It's from going down North Street, the first left, the one way, from there all the way to the bridge. Yep.
oh,
And I was just gonna say, are there any conditions of the bridge that might preclude it being classified as a 2? Because the bridge has got weight restrictions, I would say, it's single lane and it's got height restrictions, so I don't know if, class 2 highways,
Right,
would permit something like
Right.
that.
yeah, I don't know, they never mentioned that to me as part of the reason. Oh,
I'll try it then.
Florence Road's also a class 2, just so you know,
I would say try it, go for it.
yeah,
I wonder if Elm Street in Pittsburgh applies to.
no, I think it's class 3.
That's going on Pittsburgh.
But you could go Gorham Bridge and get onto Route 7. Or Route 3 right from
Yeah.
Gorham Bridge.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah,
But they've got their on.
yeah.
So should we because School Street is one, and I'm guessing because of the school. So does that mean we should look at Grove Street, Lower Park Street, like
Yeah.
that?
Yeah, we talked about that.
Oh,
Yeah, and hold
Yeah,
it.
yeah, no, I was getting around.
And also-
I was going in a circle.
High Street and Church Street, because you come down School Street. Not everyone goes School Street to North Street or Cross Street or West
as
Street.
Church Street is in need of.
Yeah. Right, so I was just trying to follow the flow, how some streets were kind of not connecting to anything,
Right.
so is that something that next meeting, if you have a letter read, or is there a form, or is it just a motion with us?
I would say it's just a
Say-
motion at this point, and then I can approach the AOT and tell them what we've decided to do, or what we are recommending be done.
So if we would say Gorham Bridge Road, High Street, Church Street, Grove, Lower Park, and Holden,
Mhm.
is that pretty much encapsulate what we're thinking? Or, that seems like a good start,
Right.
even if there are additional.
Yeah.
Because they talk about trunk lines, that's Route 3.
Yeah,
And then, of course, West Proctor Road and Florence Road, then trunk lines to areas of activity with considerable traffic,
Yeah.
high school, the elementary.
yeah.
Right.
All right, so a motion would be in order to submit the recommendation of moving Gorham Bridge Road, High Street, Church Street, Grove, Lower Park, and Holden from class 3 to class 2.
Meadow Street can't fall in that for that. Oops,
Huh?
Meadow Street can't fall into all that with the opening in my.
No.
Oh, because it's starting Gorham
Oh, it's
Bridge.
not start, oh, yeah.
That,
That divot has been there
Yeah.
for years because they had a huge.
Right.
yeah.
But for Gorham Bridge to be considered, it'd have to be
Start
Gorham Bridge, so where you start from Gorham Bridge on
Yeah.
one way.
Okay, any further discussion about that? All those in favor? Any opposed? Motion passes unanimously. All right, a motion would be in order at 7:03 to move in to the Board of Water Commissioners.
And
So,
divot gone.
Okay, thanks, Kara.
All those in favor? Thank you.
I-
All right, water shut-offs. I think you have that in your packet.
Yeah, so what I provided with you is the main shutoffs that we did that first week. The list that I had originally given you was knocked down, and these were the priorities, because those other ones that we had on the first list, a lot of them had come in and paid. These were the ones that were still outstanding at the time. So pretty much all of them now, all of these on this list have come in and done agreements and paid on it, with the exception of 1, 2, and 3 that were shut off and remain shut off.
So what, on here, the shut-offs, is it, when you say 1, is that the first shut-off listed on here? That doesn't have an agreement?
No,
Okay,
so it's 6 Gibbs.
okay, well, that's the first shut. They don't have an.
Oh, I see what you're talking. I thought you meant first on the list.
agreement.
Okay, sorry.
They don't have an agreement?
Nope.
So they don't have water yet?
Nope.
Okay,
And 40 High, no one lives there any longer.
okay, so it's vacant.
And
Have we contacted the mortgage company, or where does that go?
I've been in touch with a family member.
Okay,
And the, next one is 43 Taylor.
And is that, someone lives there?
Yep,
And so they have no agreement and
right,
no water.
right.
And the other one that was shut off has an agreement?
Yes,
Okay. And the agreements are to the amount that, it's trying to get them back in line so they stay current and
Correct.
are paid off with in
Try
a
to pay the
reasonable
delinquency.
amount of time.
Yes. Yep,
Okay. And so they understand, like, they signed an agreement, let's say, let's say they just came in and signed an agreement for this month. If they don't pay next month, then in June, we can go and shut them off again. Okay.
it's in the notice. I mean, I'm trying to work with some people that are just down and out, and trying to make sure we get something every month, you know, but I explained to them that it's like a credit card. If you don't pay, it's just gonna get worse and
Yeah.
worse and worse, and you can't catch up. So try to,
And then the house that's vacant on 40 High Street, do they anticipate that's going up for auction or something, or?
they're gonna, I think it's going up for foreclosure.
Okay,
So,
okay. And then do we have 2, 4, 6, like 10 more that we're doing this?
We
month?
haven't, we have more, but they haven't got between East Street last week, and now they
Yeah.
got another issue on Elm Street, or not Elm Street, really, Gorham Bridge.
yeah.
Then they'll get to them.
Okay. Okay, I just don't want to get it too far away from us, because it seems like every year we kind of go strong. And then
Right.
something like that happens,
Yeah.
and then people are like, oh.
Right, no, I mean,
About it.
we have another tier, and honestly, besides the ones we originally started with, what, 70?
Yeah,
I probably have another 70.
well, right, in July 1, it's just gonna
Yeah,
propagate again.
it's time consuming, and that's the frustrating
Well,
part.
that's the other question, is that if the board is adamant about getting this under control, does it make sense to hire someone else on a temporary basis to go around with one of the town guys to do this, we hire somebody and on Tuesdays, this is what they go?
Well, it's not the guys that, it's the time constraint. It's on me that it's the time constraint, because it's sending a letter, monitoring it for 30 days,
Right.
deciding if payments came in. If not, you know, do I send a second letter because they didn't do the agreement? And then we can shut it off, or we shut it off, then they come in and do an agreement, and then keeping track of those agreements to make sure they're really on task with the
But
agreement.
we did bulk, right? Everyone's gotten a letter. Or we're doing monthly letters.
No, I did a bulk, but not like
Yeah.
a bulk of everybody.
No, but a bulk of more than
Of-
20.
Yes,
people.
yes.
Okay,
Yes.
so that next bulk of people are on notice that they could be shut off.
Yeah.
Okay,
Well, what I'm gonna do is go through the list to make sure downstairs that they haven't paid anything on these.
Yeah.
Yeah,
okay,
yeah. So,
You guys are discussing.
yeah. No, Judy, it can't be.
So if someone gets shut off, and then they think, oh, I'm shut off, and then they come in and say, well, I'm gonna pay me, and turn right back on. Do we rush and turn them right back on?
not until I see a payment,
Then they come in and just pay it out.
then we turn it on.
Then you can put it back and turn them off. Maybe there should be some kind of break period there. Gone through everything that you just described, that you had to go through, eventually that house gets shut off. There should be some time.
Oh, that like it could be 24 hours from payment
Well-
before.
Say you get payment, right? Now you have to either schedule, you're gonna have to look at your schedule as to what's going on. Maybe they're, you know, busy doing something, you know, now you're jumping through hoops to get it turned back on.
Well, so for an example, if it was, like, say they said, I'm gonna pay, they come in on a Thursday and they pay at 4 o'clock. Well, my guys have gone home already. I'm not calling them back in to turn it on.
No, that's why I agree with that.
Right, but it used to be different. They'd make them come in and go and turn it on.
See, I just-
And now it's like, no, you wait till the next day and you can
Yeah.
turn it on.
I think that if you're making you jump through hoops to even get paid, and then you end up having to turn it on. And then they decide we need water. They rush in and pay it because we need it turned right back on. I just don't think I don't think we should be rushing back out. To turn it back on.
Albert?
I was just gonna say that protocol was established in the ordinance about the time frame.
Yeah,
Yeah,
so they have to change the ordinance.
well, that may even go back to the state statute, you know, when we looked at it for the maximum fines you could have for doing things. And, I think the time is in our ordinance, it's gotta be done within so many hours, but it can be during normal working hours.
Right,
like you
right.
say. I mean,
Yeah, if they pay at
Yeah.
4 o'clock, we don't have to go
Yeah,
out
right.
at 5 o'clock.
right. But I
Yeah.
think the protocol is in the ordinance.
I would assume so.
Yeah, I don't remember what.
Within the
verbiage was.
business day or something like that,
Yeah.
or something is.
I mean, I can say there's a few that I know have come in, done an agreement. And I know next month their water will be shut off again.
Well, that's what I mean, we're going back and forth.
Right, but then it's gotta be, that's it.
Well, and that's why it puts a question for me, is it worth us getting someone else to do that with one of the guys rather than pulling 2 guys off a project to do this? And that way, there's some level of seriousness here, and we're not gonna get caught behind the 8 ball because we've got an issue with leaky valves or something, because yeah, we're in April, but October's gonna be here quick, and then we're gonna be in the same position because we
Right.
can't do anything, and July 1, they're just gonna be further in the hole when we send them out.
Well, I think, like, again, I don't think it's the guys. I think it's just the paperwork that goes with this. That's incredibly time consuming
Yeah,
and frustrating because I send letters out in February. People come in and say, well, this is what I'm delinquent. And I say, no, you're not. This is what you're delinquent now because you missed April, you missed March.
right,
And now your amount is much higher and they won't go with, no, that's what my letter said. And it's like, well, you waited 2 months to get back to me.
sure,
So it's frustrating and you've got to keep on that. And when you've got 100 people that you're kind of keeping track of, if they paid, they didn't pay, did they get the, it's a time consuming thing that's frustrating because it shouldn't have to happen.
well, but just like this, the bulk of them have come in and paid in full, right? They're
Not paid in full.
Oh, I was of the impression that said paid, they were.
No, they
in
paid
full.
on the account. No, very
Oh.
few paid in full.
Okay.
No.
Well, I just think, I guess.
And we have 2 guys that go and do it. So it's not like all 4 go and do
No,
it.
no, I
Just 2.
understand
Yeah.
that, I understand that, I'm just saying in terms of allowing them the opportunity to be working on other projects, does it make sense to have somebody else just going rather than pulling 2 guys off a project? That's
Right.
my point. I just think we need to be like really steadfast on this spring going into summer, because I understand it's like this vicious cycle, but I do think we just have to stay on top of it, so. And the fact that people are okay with not having water is.
Yeah. Well, kind of question some how they do it and then, yeah, I don't know if they turn it on themselves or what. but-
Yeah, I guess. Okay. Any other questions about that or procedure or? All right, so next month we anticipate having a different list.
Yeah, and I'll give you, like the original list I gave you with all those, I'll
Yeah.
update all of that for you. And
Okay,
then,
and so do you want to do that at the second meeting?
in May,
Yeah,
yeah, that'd probably be better.
okay.
Yeah, because I mean, after this is only like 1 more week to get.
Yeah.
Yeah.
All right, anything else for water? Did you want to talk about the leak at the triangle? or-
I have it on my
Okay.
manager's report.
Sure, okay. So a motion would be in order at 7:14 to leave Board of Water and enter the Board of Sewer Commissioners.
So,
Second.
All those in favor?
Aye.
all right,
Motion passes unanimously. Sludge.
So we went out to bid for the sludge removal and they solicited 4 companies and also put it in the Vermont bid registry. We have somebody coming Friday to go down to the treatment facility to take a look at it. They're trying to schedule another date with another, company, and then one wants samples. So there's been a lot of interest in the sludge removal. So it's really good because it's gonna give us options and get more than one bid, one quote. So that's a good thing.
And so when do we think we'll have that number?
Their deadline was May 1st. He's moved it to May 15th because a couple of them wanted more
Okay.
time. So
Sure. Okay, so we'll open those here with him then, or we'll open those, May 15th is not a meeting.
yeah, I know. I don't know if they open them.
Oh,
I have
okay.
to double check with him on that.
Yeah, that makes
They
sense,
might-
then
yeah,
he
they-
can
Yeah.
compare.
Yeah, right.
It's going blind.
Yeah,
It's not going blind.
I guess we could go up the other way or.
Up the hill, I'm gonna leave it on that.
Yeah. As long as it doesn't
They're probably better on
slide
a
out.
flat land.
Yeah,
Back up to them.
It's dry. It's dry.
Yeah.
It won't hurt.
Okay.
I mean, do you smell it now?
Go on vacation that week or something.
Yeah,
Everything comes down to that.
all right, anything else for Board of Sewer?
Nope.
All right, motion will be in order to leave the Board of Sewer at 7:16. Second,
Second.
all those in favor?
Right.
Motion passes unanimously. Everybody has the sheriff's report in their packet. Any questions, concerns about that?
Albert, just a comment.
Sure.
It was nice to see a, full length. And it was nice to see that how the text fits on the width of the page.
Uh,
Aren't truncated lines and.
Oh.
It was nice to see it.
I don't get it that way, just so you know. I have to try to format it because when it comes, it's not. It's all,
It's
It's weird, yeah.
Whatever you did with this one, do the same thing.
okay.
That was-
I try to do the same thing.
It usually comes in a little picture like it's coming over a.
Yeah, it's, yeah.
Yeah,
Telegraph
right.
or something.
But no, as I say, that format, this
Yeah.
report was nice.
I was gonna say, the other thing that's nice is we have noticed, well, I mean, I guess. If you get stopped, maybe it's not nice, but, state police, a little more activity in town, they were at St. Dominic's tonight. They've been down at the pond, so a little more visibility with them too,
Yeah.
Yeah, the sheriff's out a lot.
yeah.
I've seen them.
Yeah.
I mean, it shows. They've made quite a few tickets.
Yeah, and the state police have been
Yep.
helping out on Route 3. That's good.
All right. Town managers report.
Okay, so I talked about Gorham Bridge, I won't talk about that now. So the water leak on East Street at the top of Patch, there was a valve that we thought was leaking and they thought it was gonna be a quick fix, get to the valve, fix it. Once they dug, they realized it was deeper and then they realized the pipe all the way, I mean, they dug a big hole. And, once they got down there, they found that a lot of the connections had to be repaired. So, I did get, Tom Grace did the digging. And I did get some very complimentary kudos from him about our public works guys and what a great job they did. And that the two of them are the ones that basically repaired everything and that they did a great job. So,
That's good.
yes, I wish John was here to hear that, but.
Yeah,
Yeah.
it
No,
wouldn't sink in.
So timber harvesting, I met with the forester and, Kyle and I went up to meet the loggers. There was a water runoff from where they were doing the harvesting. And it was coming down, it had been kind of rerouted and there was like a dip, so it was coming down there and then running along the road in a ditch. And they were afraid that if there was heavy rainfall, it might spill over into the roads. So our guys went down, dug it, redirected it, and that seemed to take care of it. But the loggers came and they said they're coming back in the spring to do more logging. And they said what they'll do is because of the way it was cut, they saw where it was coming down the middle. So they'll redirect it. And then they said they're actually going to put in water bars across where the landing is. And that will keep the water from going down that route. And then they're also going to lay logs across the entrance so people can't go into there. Because it's right now it's very muddy, but even once they're finished, they don't want people because
Yeah.
people just go in there with Jeeps and start flying up the hill
Yeah.
where they start cutting and stuff. And somebody was there making a fire one night too. They had a whole pile of pallets and they had a fire, so. So they're gonna take care of all that, so, let's see. Dumpsters, I ordered the dumpsters for dump day, which is again, May 3rd from 10 to 1. And the hazardous waste will be there 11 to 1 up above. We already have the permits if you want them, so there's two. The white one is you just get one, go to the dump, give it to them. You can dump your stuff. If you go back a second time, it's a blue one and that one is $20. So, yep. Now, let's see. The Rotary is helping clean up Beaver Pond on May 17th from 9 to noon. The rain date is the 18th. The gate has been opened into the picnic area entrance, and I'm gonna go look at getting some stain to redo the tables. And I'll take a look at the grills too. They aren't up yet, so. See, we did have some complaints about lawn damage from winter salting and plowing, and no one is on. They were before, but they're not any longer. And I believe the board went and checked the property that
I
had been
did
that
Yeah.
had complained about. So I don't know if they want answers, if they're gonna call me.
Can you, if they do, reach out to you, Dan, have you already provided that for them in the policy? Have you provided this information to them?
I honestly can't remember if I emailed it to him or not.
Okay, if
I
not-
talked to him about it. I told him about
All
it.
right, I guess if they reach out again, that would be my suggestion, that the two places have said there, just to share that with them, and then if that doesn't suffice, then the next step is, I mean, they'll have to come here.
Right.
But,
Yeah.
Right,
yeah,
right.
you're done dealing with
Yeah,
it.
yes,
Yeah.
exactly. And let's see, other than that, I did attend a municipal management summit in Woodstock last week. And it was actually really good because it was a lot of small Vermont towns like us. And everyone seemed to have the same, concerns, complaints, mostly about, the state. A lot of, things that don't get done quickly. We get things thrown at us to comply with and to correspond with, and it's like due in 5 days.
Yeah,
We ask them for things and we're lucky if we hear back in 3 months. I mean, like the bids for the sludge removal, that was supposed to go out like 6 weeks ago.
Yeah.
And the state got hold of it and said, no, we gotta check, we don't know. And they're actually making us do another application for the payment of the sludge. So they said, we'll tie it into this, but we want it separate. But when it comes to repayment, it'll all be folded into the same application. So now we're on to application 3 for the design, and Alderton Elliott will take care of that.
Yeah.
So, but that seemed to be the biggest concern, that, and the league was some other issues with that, so. But it was very, very beneficial. It was very open, a lot of, just talk about with each other and concerns and stuff. So it was really, really beneficial to see that. It kind of made me walk away and go, wow, we're not anywhere near some of these tough spots that some of these towns are in. And not so much just the situation we're in, but just the dynamics in their town, so.
yeah.
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 All right.
Right.
That's it.
Okay. All right, any other old or new business? No? Yeah, I was gonna say, Albert looks like he's on the precipice of saying something.
Only because it's on my walking route, and I know the elementary school patrol uses that upper end of North Street. If they're doing cold patching, there's a couple of sections of, the sidewalk where all the asphalt's gone.
Yeah,
If they could just throw some in there and
yeah.
tamp it down.
I think they're waiting so they can do like hot mix in there, so it actually
Oh, okay.
stays. Cause I know they did it out here and it's like the next day it's gone.
Yeah, this one.
Yeah.
Yeah, but this was on the sidewalk. This wasn't on.
And it's on North Street? Oh, on the
On the
sidewalk.
sidewalk.
Okay,
Yes,
okay.
and I like that to say, that's where the patrol goes down.
Right.
To the five
Okay.
intersection, and
Where
on the sidewalk, right in front of,
Franklin's?
Carnovich's.
Oh,
Yeah, and there's a couple of spots, one up and one halfway down.
Okay.
That.
Okay.
All right, and did everybody go on and take their test and all that?
Ethics.
Yeah. Some, yes, some no.
Yes.
Oh, I was gonna say everyone but Albert, that seems. I know, when he's going, ooh, I wasn't sure.
Albert did it 3 times.
I do for the last meeting to do it, so I did it. that week.
Okay, no, I'm just inquiring. All right, anything
Thank you,
else?
Albert, for listening to me.
It's nice 1 out of 5 of our children.
Yeah, I know.
Anything else anybody has that, putting on or,
Who has the sign up? Who has the thing to sign?
right here?
Is it all signed?
It's right here.
No, the water,
Oh,
the reassignment I passed out to you.
Yeah.
yeah, oh. Do I have it in my file here? Maybe I do. I thought I
I don't
did.
know. No, there it is.
Oh, there it is, right there.
Thank you.
You know. All right, if there's nothing else, a motion would be in order to adjourn at 7:26.
So. All right.
All right.